Every time Jonte got into anything, toothache, headache, call my mama. I wasn't there. And that's like my biggest regret, that I wasn't there for him.
He saw the vehicle pull up. He instantly hears gunfire. Just shooting.
When you're in a relationship that is hostile and volatile and unpredictable and unsafe, you do reach a breaking point.
People do act different ways. People may be frightened, people may be angry.
It's not about love anymore. It's about property, what's mine.
17 shell casings tell a story within itself, right? It says someone wanted someone dead.
August 27th, 2017. Around 1:30 a.m., police in Detroit, Michigan respond to the scene of a terrifying car accident.
A 911 call was placed because a vehicle had crashed into a church. One of the walls in the parking lot, a vehicle had driven through the wall of the parking lot, and they believe they saw a person inside the vehicle.
Responders get to the scene, and they notice a 20-something-year-old man slumped over, barely breathing.
At those hours, it's typically pretty quiet. The person was driving eastbound on Mack Avenue. It looks like they lost control around this location. You can see the tires in the grass. He went through a 3-foot high brick wall, and then his vehicle came to a rest in a parking lot.
Upon closer inspection, officers spot evidence of a reason for the crash.
They notice bullet holes on the driver's side of the vehicle, as well as blood dripping from the man's body.
EMS now arrives and discovers that the person is shot. There's a chest wound. Now it's turning into a different investigation.
First responders are able to identify him as 29-year-old Jonte Brooks. They jump into action, and they rush him to the hospital because they try to save this man's life.
Jonte Maurice Lewis Brooks was born in 1988. His mother, Teresa Brooks, had him when she was little more than a child herself.
Jonte is my firstborn. I was really happy when he first got home, and my mom took care of him because I was just 17. So she took care of us together, you know.
Jonte grew up in a loving, close-knit family. He had 3 brothers, 1 sister. Unfortunately, Jonte's father was not in the picture, so he took it upon himself at a very early age to be the man of the family.
In high school, Jonte's charm made him popular with the girls in his class. But he only had eyes for one young woman in particular, named Dewayna.
He can stay away from her, she can stay away from him. So they were like together. They had a great relationship. They went to the prom together. It's beautiful.
They were head over heels in love with each other, and they were overjoyed when they had their first child. Not having a father in his life, Jonte took the role of being a father very seriously, so he was a very active dad.
Although they never married, the couple went on to have 4 more children together, and Jonte worked hard to support them.
Jonte eventually figured out that he thrived working with his hands and landed a career in landscaping. He took a lot of pride in his work and creating beautiful landscapes for all of his clients.
Settling down at such a young age sometimes put a strain on the relationship. But the couple always seemed to work things out.
They broke up for a second, and then they got right back together. And I knew that It was just love. They couldn't stay away from each other.
However, during one of their breaks, Jonte fathered a child with another woman. Eventually, there was no more getting back together.
Even though he and the mom eventually went their separate ways, he still prioritized co-parenting and being there for all of his children.
He was a great dad. He went, picked them up, took them wherever he went, brought them over to the house, even if he wasn't going to be there. He still had the kids there, always.
Even if he wasn't with the mothers any longer, he was right there, being a great father figure to all of them.
Really proud of him, because there's a lot of men out here that have kids and just don't even recognize them. He didn't have a lot, but for sure he had those kids with him by his side, whatever he was doing.
In the fall of 2016, Jonte decided to take another chance on love with 26-year-old Mignetta Yeager.
Mignetta actually pursued Jonte, and he found this really appealing because she would take the initiative. And so she would take him out on dates, pick him up for dates, pay for things, and this was unfamiliar to someone who had to provide for everyone in his life. They had a really happy relationship, always spending time together, going on dates, and just really excited about the future.
He actually thinks that she may potentially be the one. But as in oftentimes in cases like this, you know, there's a hiccup along the way and the relationship begins to fade and it falls apart.
By 2017, Jonte had simplified his life, focusing on spending time with his children. But now, he's clinging to life. Detroit police have determined Jonte lost consciousness and crashed into a church after someone shot him. The question is who?
There's no guns in the car, there's no passenger in the vehicle, so obviously somebody from outside the vehicle fired into the car. We try to figure out, one is motive. Was this person an intentional target? Was it an accident?
Witnesses tell police a truck was pursuing Jonte shortly before he crashed.
Several witnesses noticed the white minivan seemed to be trying to get away from the red pickup truck. However, once the white minivan crashed into the church, the red pickup truck fled the scene. They were not able to see the license plate. However, they did notice there were two people in the vehicle, a man and a woman.
Unfortunately, none of them saw the shooting.
Officers surveyed the scene and noticed there are no shell casings at the church. They realized the shooting must have occurred somewhere else.
We would call that a two-part scene. The secondary crime scene would have been where he was found. The original crime scene would be where he was shot.
One theory was that this was possibly a road rage incident, because that's what normally happens if you see one vehicle chasing another down the road.
In that specific area, we haven't responded to too many homicides. There is a little bit of prostitution over there. There's some breaking and entering of automobiles and stolen cars and things of that nature. Now, the investigative wheels are spinning to where this could have happened at.
As officers are surveying the scene, they notice down the street at the gas station, there are multiple cars and blue flashing lights. And they wonder, is this part of the current scene?
Hours of August 17th, 2017. Into the shooting of 29-year-old Jonte Brooks. Before they've even finished interviewing witnesses, they receive some tragic news.
Unfortunately, the paramedics were not able to save his life, and he does die at the hospital. He was killed from a single bullet that went through his right shoulder and went through his lungs.
So now you have a murder investigation. And now, where was he murdered?
Flashing lights from patrol cars at a gas station nearby tip off officers to the possible location.
Coincidentally, there's a crime scene just down the street. Second call that had come in for shots fired at the gas station. Officers at the scene were quickly able to determine that the two incidents were connected.
When investigators arrive, they find evidence of a relentless attack. 17 spent shell casings scattered on the ground.
Officers notice all 17 shell casings are the same, so they seemingly come from the same weapon, meaning there's probably just one shooter. After Jonte was shot, he tried to get away. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries, swerved and drove right into the church and crashed.
You have a two-part scene, so we would have to break those two up and then have evidence techs or our crime scene services section document each location.
17 shell casings tell a story within itself, right? It says someone wanted someone dead.
Officers talked to the gas station owner, and he says he then noticed a red pickup truck pull up and a white minivan pulled up right next to it. He heard some arguing and heard some gunshots, about 6 or 7 of them.
The owner tells police that when he ran to the window, he caught a glimpse of the shooter.
The gas station owner noticed there was a young black woman shooting at the white minivan. At this point, the white minivan pulled out and sped off. The woman followed, shooting on foot at the white minivan, then jumped back into the red pickup truck and tried to follow him.
Unfortunately, he's unable to provide a description of the driver or the license plate.
People don't look out the window and expect a homicide to happen and say, I'm documenting it step by step by step. I'm looking at my watch. Okay, it's now. They're not doing that. You know, you're busy doing this. All of a sudden you hear something, you look, and you only capture this much.
Luckily, the gas station has security cameras covering the entire area.
What's better than the witness account is the video at the store, which captures the event in its entirety from start to finish.
Officers review the surveillance footage, and they notice an older black man driving the vehicle and a young black woman in the passenger seat. She's on her phone, and she seems very animated as she's talking. At this point, a white minivan pulls up beside them with the window rolled down. They start to argue, and the young lady jumps out of the vehicle and starts shooting at the white minivan.
Based on the video footage, there wasn't any delay. There was no physical contact. There wasn't any of that.
The video provides investigators with enough information to identify the driver.
Not only does the surveillance footage show the shooting happening, it also reveals the license plate of the vehicle. They're able to tell the vehicle belongs to 44-year-old LeBaron Borum. The officers check his DMV photo, and they notice there is a resemblance to the person in the surveillance video. The officers also realize he lives in the neighborhood of the gas station.
From that, we did surveillance and were able to locate the vehicle parked in the driveway. And from there, we were able to locate and eventually interview the owner of that red pickup.
Ultimately, police arrive at LeBaron's door, and they have questions for him.
At this point, he's the one that ultimately gets to decide what role he wants to play in this investigation. In these investigations, typically when you have multiple defendants, whether it's a bank robbery with 4 or 5 defendants or a homicide with 3 or 4 defendants, typically the first person that comes to the table to talk to the prosecutors will get the best outcome.
And he spills it all. It ends up being a very wild night and a wild scene.
Detroit police are questioning 44-year-old LeBaron Borum, one of 2 suspects identified at the scene of Jonte Brooks' murder. According to LeBaron, he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He says he was strictly trying to be a good Samaritan. He just got caught up in a very bad situation.
LeBaron says it began with an argument between two strangers on his front lawn.
LeBaron tells the officers his son ran into the house and told him, "Dad, there's a van that ran up onto our yard." At this point, LeBaron went outside to see what was going on.
What he says is that he notices there's a female and a male, they're arguing, there's some type of altercation going on. Ultimately, he says the male gets into the vehicle, and it appears that he's about to run the female over. She ultimately gets out of the way, and he drives on in this white van.
LeBaron tells the officers he does recognize the lady from the neighborhood. It is 27-year-old Minnietta Yeager.
He knew the man arguing with Minnietta as well. It was her ex-boyfriend, Jonte Brooks.
What he stated was that he was aware that Miss Yeager and Mr. Brooks were in a tumultuous type of relationship.
By the time LeBaron came to her aid, Jonte had already driven away.
He went to help Miss Yeager, thinking that this was a woman in distress. And she ultimately says, "Hey, yes, can you go after this white van? That's my mother's van. I gotta get it back. I'm concerned my boyfriend just attacked me and he took the van." He had no clue that she had a gun on her. So he ultimately lets Miss Yeager into his vehicle and they drive off looking for this white minivan.
While they were chasing Jonte, Minnietta called police to report the van stolen. Then she called Jonte.
Miss Yeager said her plan was to try to keep Jonte on the phone as long as possible so the police can get to him and he could be arrested.
There's some heated words being said back and forth. Ultimately, he also hears that they agreed to meet up on the east side of Detroit at a gas station in the area of Van Dyke and Warren Avenue. And this would have been around 1 o'clock in the morning on August 27th. When they get to the gas station, there's no Jonte. And so, she instantly calls Jonte on her phone. She argues with him, "Why didn't you show up?" Well, apparently he did show up because he says that he noticed that she was in a vehicle with another man. He's not too happy about that, according to her, and he has choice words. She indicates to LeBaron that he ultimately makes a threat towards her, saying he's gonna kill them.
At this point, LeBaron was reconsidering his decision to get involved. But he ultimately agreed to drive to another gas station.
LeBaron tells the officers Jonte pulled up about a minute later. But then they started arguing because he was highly upset.
He says something to apparently push her buttons. She immediately gets out the vehicle and pulls out a weapon. And she starts to fire into the vehicle that Jonte is in.
Mr. Brooks, without hesitation, just hit the gas and took off. In the course of the shots being fired at the vehicle, Mr. Brooks was shot.
But the harrowing encounter wasn't over yet.
At this point, LeBaron is terrified. He didn't know what just happened. He wanted to just get out of there. However, Ms. Yeager jumped back into the vehicle and told him to just drive.
As Jonte is attempting to get away, he's obviously shot and he's obviously hurt because he then pulls into the lot of a church which is nearby on Mack Avenue and at that point collapses. LeBaron seeing this and Miss Yeager seeing this as they're chasing him, they then decide to pull off and keep going. What LeBaron indicates to the police is that he noticed some lights behind him and, he freaks out.
He saw the police coming and he did not want to be a part of that at all.
He decides to turn down a side street. He ultimately makes his way back home. And strangely enough, he says that Miss Yeager just gets out the vehicle and walks back home. Doesn't say a single word. And from that point, he says he doesn't hear from her ever again. In fact, he doesn't hear anything else until police arrive at his door.
Investigators believe LeBaron is telling the truth. Unfortunately, his actions still make him an accessory to murder.
I don't know if Miss Yeager was intentionally trying to kill Mr. Brooks, but her reckless display of firing a weapon and her disregard for life or anything, the outcome was ultimately homicide. So here we are.
He is ultimately charged as an accessory after the fact. And police charged him because he helped her flee the scene. And then he doesn't immediately go to police.
Hours after the murder of Detroit native Jonte Brooks, investigators are searching for the woman accused of shooting him. Jonte's ex-girlfriend, Minyetta Yeager. They also reach out to Jonte's loved ones to notify them of his death.
That Sunday morning when I woke up, I'm in Vegas. I woke up, I looked at my phone. My phone is flooded with missed texts and messages. So I listened to one of my voicemails. It was my youngest son. And he said, "Mom," he was crying. He said, "Mom, I can't believe this. This girl killed your son." I called home. I said, "What is going on?" My youngest son said, "Mom, I just got back from the hospital. I had to view him. He said she killed your son. I just lost it. I lost it."
After recovering from the initial shock, Jonte's family tells police they feared something like this might eventually happen.
What we had learned through the investigation was it was a tumultuous relationship.
So while things started out great in the beginning for Jonte, the transition happened when things got a little more hostile in the relationship. So Miss Yeager started calling him a lot, stalking him, accusing him of being with other women, popping up unannounced at his family's house.
I always heard her in my home, but I never cared to meet her or anything because she was loud, Every time she came to my house, she was always loud. And I just told him that, she can't come over no more because she's very disrespectful. And he said, okay.
When partners start showing that behavior of calling him a lot, accusing him of being with other women, at first we take that as a sign of, they like me, they're crazy about me. That behavior tends to get ignored a lot until it's very problematic, right? But at that point, it's a pattern and you find yourself stuck in a relationship, right? That's unhealthy.
I know there was a lot of 911 calls back and forth for the domestic situations between her and him. So there was definitely, from a long-term perspective, there was a build-up.
Jonte's loved ones became even more concerned when they discovered Minyetta's family had a history of violence.
Unfortunately, Minyetta was no stranger to this type of violence. Her sister years prior had murdered her ex-boyfriend and his current girlfriend.
I told my son, I said, "Jonte, Minyetta is dangerous. Stay away." He was young. He said, "Okay, I know, Mom, I know." But he didn't.
In August 2017, 2 weeks before Jonte's murder, the family says he and Minyetta got into a heated argument.
Miss Yeager was very erratic and emotional at this time. Jonte's mother showed the police officers her ring camera. And it shows Mrs. Yeager standing outside her house, banging on the door yelling for Jonte to come out. He refuses to come out. However, finally, he does come to the door.
They got into it. She bust out all my windows in my front of my house. And then she also bust out the window in my car.
But despite Minietta's alleged violent outburst, Jonte refused to get police involved.
In a case where you have the male that's the victim, what we oftentimes see is that they don't go to authorities for numerous reasons. One is they're not believed. Those type of cases, unfortunately, aren't taken seriously. And also, it's that male stigma, right? You want to be tough, and to go to police or to go to friends or loved ones and say, hey, I'm being abused by this female, well, takes a little way away from your masculinity. So men feel a little ashamed. You rather walk away. And that's what Jonte was doing here.
Crazy.
Instead, he finally decided to break up with her.
August 27th, that's the day he got killed. But that Friday before, I talked to him, and he was like, Mom, I see what everybody is saying. I gotta get away from this girl. I said, Jonte, I agree. He said, I got to get away.
When you're in a relationship that is hostile and volatile and unpredictable and unsafe, you do reach a breaking point, and you don't want to hear from that person anymore. You cut them off completely, and a lot of times that is not well received.
The night before he died, Jonte agreed to meet up with Minietta one last time.
What we know is that on August 26th, Jonte is contacted by Miss Yeager, and she's insistent. She wants to meet with him. She wants to talk. He's trying to tell her, no, it's over. I'm moving on. There's nothing else, I need to talk about. And she wants to meet him at his aunt's house, which is not far from where she lives.
Minietta was always bribing him with money and gifts. Even if he says no, she will still come around. If he don't react the way that she want him to react, she will sit in the driveway and just blow on the horn, just lay on the horn. So this particular night, she did this. Jonte didn't want no problems, because this was my sister's house. And she was beating on the door at first. My sister came to the door and told her that Jonte is asleep. So she go back to the car and just lays on the horn at my sister's home. Jonte came outside and, he went with her.
Just a few hours later, Jonte was dead. And now, investigators can't find Minietta anywhere.
They've been canvassing the neighborhood. They put a bolo out. At this point, they even go to the news media because they cannot find her anywhere.
This is on 11 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, and ultimately someone does see and does give her information. It's her, it's Miss Yeager herself.
Less than 24 hours after fatally shooting her ex-boyfriend, Jonte Brooks, Minietta Yeager turns herself in to Detroit police.
She was transported to our holding facility, which is the Detroit Detention Center, and I went and interviewed her there. But I believe that she had an opportunity to speak with a lawyer before she turned herself in, so our interview was very short.
The story Minietta tells police is quite different from the one they've heard so far. Minietta claims she's the one who ended the relationship with Jonte, not the other way around.
She says she was abused by Jonte for months now. And at this point, she went to the mother's house because she finally had the courage to break up with him. She says that once she told him that she wanted to break up, he went crazy.
According to Minietta, Jonte is the abuser in the relationship. And on this night, she says that he pulled her out of the van, beat her up, even beat her with a pistol at one point.
she finally was able to get away and run away from him. But no, he took the van and tried to run her over. At this point, LeBaron was there and she saw him and he offered to help.
Mignetta says she asked LeBaron to drive her to the gas station, intending to get her van back from Jante. As she got out of LeBaron's truck, he handed her a gun to protect herself.
She says, in fact, that it was LeBaron who had the weapon and that she was simply there to just talk to Jante. But she takes the weapon. She's in fear. She's in natural fear. She doesn't know what Jante's gonna do. She says ultimately, out of self-defense, she shoots at Jante. And she probably shot once or twice, 2 or 3 times at most. But then she tells police that her memory is foggy about the exact details.
Investigators are skeptical of her claims.
But it didn't make much sense because, you know, she says that she was abused and he was the abuser, but yet she's pursuing him. There's evidence that shows that she's appeared at his mother's house on a couple of occasions and, you know, threw a brick through the mother's windshield, tried to attack him when he opened the door to have a conversation. She says she shot 2 or 3 times at most, but we know from the physical evidence that there were 17 shell casings there at the gas station.
The police had a tough job in this situation because on one hand, we have Mignetta, who is reporting abuse, and then on the other hand, they also have contradicting reports where she was the abuser.
In a situation of domestic violence, you'll see signs of abuse. You'll see black eyes, you'll see broken noses, you'll see fat lips and cuts and scars and things of that nature. But in this situation, I don't remember any type of injuries to her. Now, there was a day or 2 that had passed, so could have something healed. I'm sure there's probably some doctors that could argue one way. There's some doctors that could probably argue the other. However, in this situation, I didn't see anything obvious.
I think that people in general expect a bad woman to act and look a certain way, that this person is going to be meek and timid and scared and crying. And in my experience, you don't know how you're going to act. People do act different ways, so we have to investigate.
Mignetta's statement also raises another question.
Miss Yeager said LeBaron gave her a gun, but LeBaron said Miss Yeager just brandished the gun. So where did the gun come from?
It's a very important detail because if LeBaron, in fact, did hand her this weapon, well, maybe this is not a first-degree murder case. Maybe this is a second-degree murder case or manslaughter.
When investigators re-interview LeBaron Borum, he says Mignetta is lying.
LeBaron says he doesn't own a gun, does not have one registered to him or anything. The police even search his home and do not find one.
But Mignetta doesn't appear to have the gun either.
In murder cases, you know, oftentimes the defendant, especially when they've had time to flee the scene and head home, you know, they'll discard the weapon, they'll throw it somewhere, they'll hide it someplace, they might pass it on to someone else. Police did search for the weapon but couldn't find it, which is not unusual. But they have enough evidence.
There's a misconception that you need a firearm to prove a homicide occurred or to charge somebody with homicide. That's not true.
The video evidence is pretty damning in and of itself.
On August 30th, 2017, Mignetta Yeager is charged with first-degree murder. At her arraignment, she shows little remorse.
It was like around her birthday, and she told the judge, well, can we get this on because my birthday is coming up, so I want to get out of here. And the judge say, Miss Mignetta, this is a homicide right here. You're not getting out that fast. the stuff, but he had a nice funeral.
Nearly a year later, in August 2018, his accused killer, Minyetta Yeager, goes on trial.
Ms. Yeager's crux of her defense was that she was the one being abused. She was the only person who could testify to that, so she had to take the stand if that's what she wanted to do. And she wanted to do that, so she took the stand, and it didn't work out very well. Ms. Yeager indicated there were a couple people that tried to help her when he was assaulting her just previous to this homicide. That didn't bear out. These people, they were never found. There were no visible injuries.
Minyetta is a liar. She was saying that he was beating on her. If he was beating on you, why all the time you're at my house? Why I have to always ask my son to keep you away? We couldn't keep you away.
Prosecutors focus on the night of the shooting, arguing the evidence clearly shows Minyetta was the aggressor.
Video evidence was very specific to show that Miss Yeager went to that gas station with one intention, and one intention only, and that was to seek revenge to Mr. Brooks for taking her vehicle. She didn't get out of the car and flag him down and stop him and say, let's talk, reach her hand out for the exchange of keys. The wheels were still rolling, and she was already out of the neighbor's vehicle and firing at Mr. Brooks. In domestic violence situations and tumultuous relationships, it's not about love anymore. It's about property, what's mine. And I think people ultimately become property to each other as well. You belong to me.
In previous situations, Jonte had kind of acquiesced. This time he was staying true to what he wanted, and he drove off from her, and she did not know how to respond to that, and that led her into a rage.
After a 3-day trial, the jury finds Minyetta Yeager guilty as charged.
We were able to have Ms. Yeager convicted of first-degree murder, and that is mandatory life in prison in the state of Michigan.
And the judge asked her, did she have anything to say to me or the family? She said no. She was looking directly at Dwayna and really smiling, which is evil, pure evil.
LeBaron Borum is also convicted of being an accessory after the fact. He serves less than 2 years in prison.
Whenever you get a guilty verdict on any case, but especially on a homicide, there's a sense of a job well done, that all of your hard work is paid off, and you're especially glad to get that justice for the family. But there's always going to be that sense of loss, and you can never make that family whole.
Everybody tells me that I have to forgive her. I would never forgive her. Never forgive her. This is my firstborn. She took him away from me, but I don't have anything to say to her. People say hate is a strong word. I want to go above hate. I hate her, and God understands my pain. I don't have to forgive her.
If anyone can learn anything from this, it's to make sure that you do report abuse, that you let your loved ones know what's going on, you let others know what's going on. Most importantly, you let the police know.
I wasn't even there for him, and that was hard. I wasn't there. Every time Jonte got into anything, Two-Face, call my mama. Anything this kid had it, call my mama. I wasn't there, and that's like my biggest regret, that I wasn't there for him. And I know he was in pain. I know that he was calling for me.
I just feel like my brother's gone. My life is gone. He's never coming back. So in a sense, I feel life for life. You took his life, I feel like you should spend the rest of yours behind bars.
They observe him, walk up behind him, and shoot him once in the head. And he did this motion to them as he walked past, as if to suggest, shh.
This reeked of revenge.
How do you walk past the site where your brother was murdered? How do you move on from something that is in your face every single day?
He told Saquon, whenever I see you, I'm just gonna handle the situation.
My grandmother used to always say, you try to dig a ditch for someone else that you're gonna fall in.
July 2nd, 2016, in the sprawling suburbs of Northern Virginia. After a late night out, 22-year-old Kentrice Hall is getting ready for bed when she's interrupted by a terrifying call.
I literally just took my dress off and laid in the bed. I was so tired. I was on the phone, and I keep getting this call from this guy. I know he likes me, and he's from, you know, uptown. And I'm like, what did he want? So I finally answered the phone, maybe the third call, and he's like, your brother, he just got shot. I'm like, what? Like, I immediately jumped up, and I'm telling my mom, like, get the F up. Like, Saquon has been shot. We have to go now.
When Kentrice told me that, I just freaked out. You know, it was like one of my worst fears coming to fruition. I don't change clothes or anything. We both get in the car and we're on our way.
The pair head to the place where the shooting occurred.
I did maybe 80 all the way down the street. I put the hazards on, so I was able to fly.
Kentrice's brother, 23-year-old Saquon Hall, has gotten into his share of trouble before. But this time, it feels different.
When I get there, the whole street is lit up. A lot of people standing outside. There's paramedics.
And I'm running up the street saying, where's my son? He wasn't in the ambulance. They were, I think, putting him on the stretcher. But everything seemed like it was in slow motion. I'm praying, I'm hollering, Saquon, hold on.
Saquon Hall was born on November 7th, 1992. And he and his 4 siblings grew up in a low-income Northern Virginia neighborhood.
The 3 oldest boys are actually 5 years apart. And then there was Saquon.
Me and Saquon are very close in age. You couldn't tell if we weren't twins growing up. My mom would buy us 2 of the same shoes, just different sizes. He was always the person in the grade before me, so everyone knew that I was coming.
He was always cutting up in school. You know, he was just a class clown. Everybody loved him. You know, he was a good guy.
Saquon's aunts and uncles lived on the same block, so he was always surrounded by family. But Saquon had a special relationship with his father.
He liked to play football a lot, and Saquon's dad was his football coach. Saquon was a really good player, very fast, light on his feet.
When his father died, Saquon was only 8 years old. It turned his entire world upside down.
Once his dad died, it was just like, no more football. Like, he would watch the Cowboys, of course, but he didn't want to play anymore.
It's very difficult when children lose a parent. Very difficult. And for Saquon, he didn't have a strong male role model in his life.
As he grew older, Saquon became his own role model, taking care of his mother and sister, as well as his close friends.
He was very much outspoken. He let you know, if there was any injustice or wrong, he would say it.
You come to him with a problem, he made it his problem. One time, I think I was in the 6th grade, Saquon was in the 7th grade, and we were walking across our middle school football field to get to my mom's job, and all of a sudden, you seen Saquon's friend getting like body slammed by a police officer, and Saquon being the person that he is, like he ran over there, to like diffuse the situation. They started to, of course, body slam Saquon as well. And I'm standing there looking like, what? I'm just like screaming. They took him down to the police station and all that. And that was Saquon's very first, incident with the law.
As a result, Saquon's mother decided to relocate the family to a different area of town.
My mom was like, I'm done with it. We're moving from the projects, we're moving to the west side, and it's gonna be a better life for everyone.
But for Saquon, it was hard adjusting to a new neighborhood.
The first 2 or 3 months, he was catching the bus and would be gone all day in our old neighborhood.
I would have to go looking for him to find out where he was. I just didn't like the crowd that he was hanging with.
Saquon began spending more and more time on the streets. To keep him out of trouble, his mother encouraged him to volunteer at a local soup kitchen.
I'm a minister, and I was an advocate helping those in public housing. My children were always there with me to help me clean up. I tried to raise my kids with how to be proactive, and just love everybody.
But it was a high school classmate who finally got Saquon to settle down. Her name was Takia Johnson. And not long after graduation, she and Saquon had a child together.
He was 19 or 20 when the kids came. Well, when the first child came, which was a girl. Loved her.
Things started to definitely change. Everything was about Skylar and this and Skylar that. I know that definitely brought a different side to him. And then slowly after that, Imari came, and then it was like a dad of 2, and it was just like, what are you going to do?
Then, in 2015, Saquon's turn at fatherhood nearly came to an end when he was shot for the first time.
I remember it's kind of cold, late at night, and we got a call saying that he was shot. So we, of course, immediately ran to the hospital. And there was detectives there trying to hound him to see who shot him.
He wouldn't say a word. He wouldn't say anything. I figured he was trying to honor the street code.
Saquon's loved ones hoped the brush with death would slow him down. In the weeks since the shooting, Saquon was focusing on his family and talked about going back to school to become an HVAC repairman.
I could tell he wanted to be like a fun dad. All of that long nights going out and stuff like that, he definitely changed.
But now, a second shooting has left Saquon fighting for his life. And his mother finds herself praying, once again, for his recovery.
As they were taking Saquon to the hospital, she rode in the back. And the whole time that she was riding with him, she was thinking, maybe this is just another minor shooting. Maybe he'll get through this.
As the ambulance speeds away, police begin their investigation.
Crime scene investigators responded, of course, and processed the crime scene. They found multiple shell casings, I believe 16 shell casings, all of which were from a 9mm.
There were shell casings found up and down First Street. You can see that the shooter was not standing in the same place while he was shooting.
Police recovered 2 revolvers nearby. Neither of them matches the 9mm shell casings at the scene, due to one clear explanation.
A semi-automatic weapon will kick out the shell casings. When you fire a revolver, the shell casing remains in the gun.
It was unclear to us if those weapons were ever discharged that night.
To a detective, it says that there were other guns on the scene. It could have been somebody else. It could have been the shooter having more than one gun. Who had it, who was shooting, is what the investigation reveals.
As 23-year-old Saquon Hall is rushed to a Northern Virginia hospital in critical condition, investigators question witnesses at the scene. His sister, Kentrice Hall, tells detectives they'd spent the night hosting an event together.
The night of July 1st, we had a big party. We had like a celebrity guest come. Me, Saquon, and a bunch of our friends worked very hard selling tickets for the event. But that night, it was like really weird. He was very standoffish. You could tell that he was like watching what was going on around him, or like he just wasn't there.
The party ended around midnight, and Kentrice headed home. But Saquon wasn't quite ready to call it a night.
Saquon had said he was going, with his friends. So they went uptown to the projects where one of his friends lived.
They all returned to someone's house to kind of continue hanging out. There was a large group of people who went back there.
According to Saquon's friends, the attack took place shortly after they got to the house. They'd had a few drinks when Saquon suddenly decided to leave with two young women.
At some point there, he left the residence where he was with two individuals in a car, drove a short way away. He gets out of the car. The two female individuals remained in the car. Shortly thereafter, there was a lot of gunfire.
The women say they saw Saquon running back toward the car seconds later.
Saquon was trying to escape from somebody who was pursuing him, and then one shot hit him and he fell to the ground. While he was down on the ground, the person pursuing him came up from behind and shot him again.
He was shot twice. He was shot in the back and in the back of the head.
When police ask for a description of the shooter, the witnesses become reluctant to talk.
Neither of these individuals had like a lengthy history with Saquon or deep connections to him. I kind of think they were just girls he was hanging out with. They'd all been out at the club that night.
All of these young people had this snitches bring stitches. We don't rat on anyone, that type thing.
Investigators will need to find another way to identify a suspect. Luckily, the weapons found near the scene provide a potential lead.
The guns that were recovered had serial numbers, and they were researched to find out that Edna Conte had purchased these guns.
Edna Conte is a 22-year-old resident of the Northern Virginia area. And as police quickly discover, she has bought a total of 8 guns in the past 2 months.
A 22-year-old needing 8 guns? Who is this?
Investigators immediately contact Edna, who claims there's a perfectly innocent explanation.
Edna Conte said that she had purchased these 8 guns because she was getting death threats from her boyfriend. And she relayed that she was starting to have suicidal thoughts, so she was going to get rid of the guns. And on the way to get rid of the guns, the car broke down, was towed to the shop, and the guns were subsequently stolen.
But detectives aren't buying it.
There are many lies in homicide investigations, and this was one of them. It appeared that Edna Conte was buying these guns for other people to be put out on the street, making what they call a straw purchase of firearms.
The question is, who wound up with the guns? As police search for answers, Saquon's loved ones gather at the hospital for news of his condition.
I wanted more than anything for my baby to live. I didn't want it to be serious, but it was. The doctors were working on him. They wouldn't let me see him.
Unfortunately, his wounds proved to be too severe.
I don't know if he was bleeding out. They really never gave us too much information on that, but all I know is when they came to us and told him that his time had expired, my mom just like fell out, like in the middle of the floor, body collapsed.
My thoughts and emotions were all over the place. I was devastated. I was in shock.
I couldn't believe it. We all just standing there like he was just here. Like we was just talking to him. We were in the club having a good time.
For police, it means the case has now become a murder investigation.
Edna Conte was arrested on federal gun charges. When it came to the homicide, we discuss tactics and how to move forward and what the next step is.
Detectives investigating the murder of 23-year-old Saquon Hall have little to go on. So far, their best leads are the 2 guns found near the scene. Since the weapons weren't used in the shooting, police theorize Saquon was the one carrying them. He just didn't get a chance to shoot back.
In any homicide case, the question of motive is something that we think about. There was some indication that they could have been an ambush.
A background check reveals Saquon has a history of getting into trouble. He's been in jail on several different charges, and his name pops up in connection with another homicide.
Pierre Clark was killed about a month before Saquon was killed.
Pierre was very well liked in the community. He had a lot of friends. You know, he was a fixture there.
A lot of people that knew Pierre Clark said that he was a snappy dresser. He always was paying attention to how he looked. And the people in his family said that beyond this big showboat, beyond this big showy personality, Pierre Clark was somebody that really cared for his family.
Like Saquon, 28-year-old Pierre Clark was also trying to overcome a checkered past.
He had had some substance abuse issues, and he was just one of those folks that he was known to the police because of this, but he would kind of float in and out of the legal system.
He'd been going to treatment and recovering from that and had a lot of hopes and dreams to kind of turn his life around and make things better, not just for him, but for his family.
But on the morning of June 8, 2016, Pierre was gunned down outside a public housing complex.
A lot of shootings tend to happen, in the mornings or in the evenings. This one was unusual because it happened in broad daylight.
I was already assigned to Pierre's homicide, but at that point, nobody had been arrested or charged.
Within a few days, however, a familiar name emerged.
It's on the police, the detectives, to do the investigation and to get the evidence necessary. But Saquon was the primary suspect in Pierre's murder.
There was video of Saquon leaving the area. I had informants telling me that he was responsible for it, informants that would testify, informants that would not testify.
Yet his loved ones insisted he was innocent of the shooting of Pierre.
I called him, I'm like, Saquon, where are you? What's going on? I'm at work, I'm here, hearing things that you might have did something. He's like, oh, I'm with Takia and the kids, we're at Funland. And I'm like, okay. There's no way Saquon could have did it. Funland's an hour and a half away from here.
Investigators still needed to talk to him, however, not just to question him about Pierre Clark's murder, but to protect him, too.
I remember telling Patrice, look, they are saying Saquon did this homicide. They're saying Saquon killed Pierre Clark. We need to find Saquon before somebody else does. Even with the people that would talk, there were a lot of people that wouldn't. They want to handle it themselves. They wanted street justice.
Saquon's mother ultimately convinced him to participate in the investigation. But his answers to detectives' questions only increased their suspicions.
He was showing me his cell phone saying I wasn't there, and I grabbed his cell phone and did a search warrant. He had said that he was going to see his mom, who worked at a community center in the area, and that didn't match up with the story.
Saquon had told his mother he was at an amusement park at the time of the shooting, not at the community center. The inconsistencies make police even more suspicious.
So I was building the case against Saquon. He was the only suspect.
But before charges could be brought against Saquon, he was murdered. To detectives investigating Saquon's death, the shooting looks like payback for the shooting of Pierre Clark. But Saquon's family still believes he is innocent.
Another mother that I'm close with, she calls me and she said, Miss Patrice, she said, I need to tell you something. And I said, well, what is it, sweetie? This friend tells me that she witnessed the murder of Pierre. She said, Miss Patrice, it was not your son. She said, because the guy that I saw shoot him was tall. And she also said that he had, there was another guy with him.
In the wake of her son Saquon's death, Patrice Hall turns her outrage into activism.
The murder of Pierre Clark was the third murder that year in that same area. There were a few community meetings that the police hosted in the nearby community center where she and several other mothers in the community were very much involved in trying to get this to stop. At some of those meetings, you had neighbors who were shouting, why can't you fix this? Why is this continuing to happen?
Saquon's loved ones might believe he wasn't involved, but investigators think he may have made some dangerous enemies. Rumor has it that two of these enemies were brothers, Pierre and DeJuan Clark.
Apparently, Saquon's friend had beef with the Clarks. Well, both of them, actually.
Saquon, who was always known to have his friends' back, might have joined his friend's ongoing feud with the Clark brothers.
Saquon was somebody who took things very personally. He had a sense of honor about him. If something bad was happening to people around him, Saquon was always the first one to step up and take responsibility for that, to try to fix it.
Saquon's family say his idea of payback wasn't violent like shooting, but it could still have been hurtful to DeJuan.
Saquon decided to, start dating or messing with his child's mom. It made it a little awkward, and it made it more so up on a personal level.
My grandmother used to always say, you try to dig a ditch for someone else that you're gonna fall in.
Many believe this personal slight, dating DeJuan's ex, is what led to Saquon's first shooting in June 2015, though Saquon seemed to try to cover for whoever shot him that time.
Saquon was saying, it's self-wound. I did it myself. I had a gun on me, and I put it in my pocket, and I shot myself in the thigh. Although the police can definitely tell that wasn't like a self-inflicted wound.
Everybody knew that there was something going on between Pierre and Saquon.
Many suspected Pierre shot Saquon, though he was never charged in that shooting. But a short time later, both men crossed paths again while in jail for other crimes.
Out of nowhere, Saquon's in the detention center with Pierre. I really don't understand why they would put them on the same unit in the same jail where they could see each other on a daily basis and talk to one another. I heard Pierre told Saquon he wanted to kill him and that whenever they get out, it's basically, whenever I see you, I'm just gonna handle the situation.
Instead, after the two were released, Pierre was the one who was gunned down. At first, it seemed Pierre's brother Dewan decided to let the feud die with him.
Dewan very much called for peace in the aftermath of Pierre's murder. And you very much got this sense that Dewan Clark was very publicly trying to help the family and trying to steer them through this, trying to keep them from retaliating, to hold the family together in the wake of an unimaginable tragedy. But at the same time, I think Dewan Clark was also really struggling with issues of rage. How do you walk down the street? How do you walk past the site where your brother was murdered and not let that affect you? How do you move on from something that is in your face every single day, especially for something that was at the time an unsolved murder?
Did Dewan's anger finally get the better of him?
This really reeked of revenge, and you can just see things fall into place. And you better believe people are talking.
Days after the murder of Saquon Hall, detectives have zeroed in on a suspect, 30-year-old Dewan Clark.
Dewan Clark's brother, Pierre Clark, had been murdered less than a month prior to Saquon's death. The primary suspect in that case was Saquon Hall. So our belief was that Dewan Clark murdered Saquon Hall as an act of revenge for Saquon murdering his brother.
So far, none of the eyewitnesses have been willing to identify Dewan as the shooter. But the many stories about the bad blood between the two men make it hard for investigators to believe no one recognized Dewan.
When you start hearing a running gun battle, you were going to get people looking out their window, see what's going on. And they had just come back from the club, so there were other people milling around. It was not just Saquon and Dewan out there. There were other people out there.
There was a significant amount of witness intimidation that was aimed at them, and they were very scared to come to court. So a big part of our job was to try to counteract that, to put them at ease.
Within a week, detectives convinced one of the people involved to come forward.
The individual who drove Dewan from the scene was ultimately located by law enforcement and provided that information to law enforcement.
According to the eyewitnesses, it started with Dewan finding out Saquon was in the neighborhood.
The early morning hours of July 2nd, everybody was kind of coming back from the club. Saquon found himself around the area of First Street. Problem is, Dewan also found him there.
To draw Saquon out, Dewan apparently issued a challenge.
My brother got a phone call saying like, oh, Wani's over here and he's faking, or faking meaning like telling him to come out, like, you know, basically looking for my brother or whatever. And my brother, although he was little and very skinny, he had like no fear in his heart. Like he was trying to fight the biggest sumo wrestler he could find. He would step out there.
Saquon left the party at his friend's house looking for Dewan. But Dewan was already lying in wait.
They went around the corner, and then Wani just started shooting at him. But he started to run, and once he got shot in the back and he, you know, hit the ground at the end of the sign, you know, Dewan came up and finished him, shot him in the head, and walked down the sidewalk, right past the car that the young ladies were sitting in.
And he did this motion to them as he walked past, as if to suggest, shh, right?
When investigators questioned the two young women who were with Saquon again, they confirmed the story.
They did not know him. He wasn't known to them. They did identify him in photo lineups to the police later. And it was through that we were able to identify Dewan Clark as the shooter. After a warrant was issued for Dewan Clark's arrest, the next step, of course, is that law enforcement had to find him and arrest him.
But Dewan has already left the state.
We interviewed as many people as we could find that had contact with Dewan.
They couldn't find him. It was like, y'all taking a long time to find somebody that really doesn't have too many resources. I didn't want it to be like my brother ever died for no reason. I did hear that he had probably went to North Carolina.
Kentrice shares this lead with investigators who immediately act on it.
We utilized the U.S. Marshals Task Force to track him down and find him. The Marshals Task Force is comprised of local jurisdictions that come together and they look for people. That's what they do. They're very good at it.
On July 21st, 2016, U.S. Marshals finally get a tip on Dewan's whereabouts.
He was found in North Carolina. He went down there, I want to say, with a cousin. He showed up unannounced at a family member's home with a black trash bag full of his stuff, wanting to stay there.
So the detectives, Detective Gill and Detective Oakley, went to North Carolina to get Dewan.
Nearly 3 weeks after the murder of Saquon Hall, investigators traveled to North Carolina to arrest his suspected killer, Dewan Clark. They also want to talk to the family members Dewan had contacted there.
Part of it is you want to retrace somebody's steps. Somebody shows up at your house with a black trash bag full of their stuff saying, "I want to stay." What's the first thing you're going to say? What happened? Why are you here? And so as detectives, we want to put all that together. You could find somebody that he confessed to. You could find somebody who has a little more information.
To their surprise, detectives find Dewan lounging by the pool.
He's living his best life. He was trying to figure out who said that he was there, if anybody. So in his head, he's trying to put things together.
While Dewan is taken to jail to await extradition back to Virginia, detectives search the house.
Now, bear in mind, Dewan was arrested in the swimming pool. He didn't have any of his personal items. They were all still in that house, in the bag, and in the room where he was staying. So there are pieces of this that come together with the contents of the bag.
One of the key pieces of evidence is Dewan's phone.
Cell site location data put Dewan Clark in that area at the date and time of the homicide. In addition, further cell phone evidence showed that Dewan had received a text message within minutes of the homicide, which said, "Got him." That was from a known associate of Dewan's, who may also have been in the area that night.
It was sent right after the murder, which leads to more witnesses and more information in this investigation.
Dewan denies any involvement in Saquon's shooting. But by the time police get him back to Virginia, he changed his tune.
I remember he wanted to smoke. And Dewan, as he smoked, would talk. And I remember sitting outside of the jail having about a 30-minute conversation with him.
He expressed some sorrow, some regret. This was very much a heat of the moment. This was an anger that had sat in him, and I don't think it brought him any relief.
Dewan stops short of confessing to the murder of Saquon Hall. But he does admit to blaming Saquon for his brother's death.
After the murder of Pierre Clark, Dewan would go down to the location where Pierre was killed. And there was a memorial set up at a tree right there. And he didn't go to work and was spiraling, and the murder of his brother was weighing heavy on him. Saquon Hall was allegedly talking about having killed Pierre Clark, it just got too much for DeJuan to handle. He wanted to make a deal, but as detectives, we're not in a position to make a deal. That's something that only the Commonwealth's attorney can do, state's attorneys in some jurisdictions. In Virginia, it's a Commonwealth's attorney. That is our guy, Sean Sherlock.
DeJuan expressed some remorse about the situation, but he never admitted that he's the one that killed Saquon. So in considering then, as a prosecutor, how we were going to present the case in court, the question was, all right, what's the evidence here?
Prosecutors feel confident they have a strong enough case against DeJuan to avoid making a deal. On September 26, 2016, they present their evidence in a preliminary hearing.
That's the first court date where DeJuan's in court, we're in court, and we have to present evidence to a judge. And these witnesses, the two eyewitnesses in that car, were subpoenaed for court that day, and they were going to have to testify. Because of the witness intimidation that had been going on and their fear of reprisals here for cooperating with the investigation, they were very scared about being in that place. We ultimately brought them into the court through a side door.
Despite their fear, the two women provide a detailed account of the shooting.
When one of the eyewitnesses testified, I got to that point in her testimony where she was required to identify the person whom she was talking about having seen shoot Saquon in open court. And initially, she couldn't even make eye contact. She couldn't even look at him. She was too scared. And I remember I had to walk a little closer to her and ask her to look around that room and tell the judge if she saw that person here today. And she very bravely at that point did, and then unequivocally identified DeJuan Clark as the shooter.
After the hearing, instead of taking his chances with a jury, DeJuan Clark pleads guilty to second-degree murder.
On July 27th of 2017, DeJuan Clark was sentenced to 43 years. 12 of those 43 years were suspended to do a 31-year stint in prison, and he was also ordered to pay $5,000 towards the funeral costs for Saquon Hall. The Commonwealth of Virginia, there is no early parole in Virginia, and so DeJuan Clark will be in prison for the entirety of those 31 years.
31 years that is a large chunk of somebody's life, and that is 31 years for a rash, heat of the moment decision that will haunt him even after those 31 years are over.
As a detective, you know these people and you see the struggles and you see the successes. And you, as a detective, you want to celebrate the successes and help with the struggle. And when you see a young life like Pierre Clark or Saquon Hall taken for senseless reasons, this street justice and thug life and all this stuff just ends up in people dead.
I feel like second degree wasn't enough. I just feel like my brother's gone. A life is gone. He's never coming back. So in a sense, I feel life for life. So if you took his life, I feel like you should spend the rest of yours behind bars. But I mean, I know eventually one day when I'm about 50 or so, he'll be home. And then I just will have to prepare myself for that.
I can't say that I wanted more time for him. I mean, I did feel like that in the beginning, but I just leave it alone and, let God settle it.
Saquon Hall was gunned down before a full investigation into Pierre Clark's slaying. He was never charged, and no direct evidence ties him to that murder. Saquon's mother had heard from a witness that another man was the shooter. Still, Pierre Clark was murdered, and then Saquon was killed. In this case, there are no winners, and everyone hopes the cycle of violence stops.
I talked to DeJuan's mother after the court hearing. She lost a son, 2 sons, actually. Pierre and DeJuan both had children, you know? And so when these things happen, it just doesn't happen to one person. You know, all of our lives are connected to someone else. I just believe forgiveness is the key.
I couldn't breathe, felt like my heart just jumped out of my chest. You never think that would happen in your home so soon, so fast, being that your relative, your little brother who you grew up with, knowing that you'll never see him again.
Mr. Martin had 9 entrance wounds to his body. There were 2 to the head and neck area, there were 4 in the midsection, and there were 3 in the lower extremities.
When you shoot someone that many times, this isn't a robbery gone bad. He was targeted.
The sad part is, even though the law acquitted him, in the streets, they don't want to hear any of that.
He would die over them, man. If they had beef, it was his beef.
I said, "Aren't you scared?" And he just said, "I'm not scared of nothing."
You kind of put 2 and 2 together. That was some type of payback.
May 31st, 2018. Just before dawn, police in Waterloo, Iowa, receive a call about an injured man near the 1200 block of Washington Street.
So the initial call came in that there was a black male in a pool of blood in the alley. One of the neighbors in the alley had called it in.
Responding officers quickly determined that the victim has already succumbed to his injuries. They search for evidence to explain his death.
Of particular interest here was the number of bullets, of shell casings. There were, I believe, 5 shell casings found on scene, 3 fired bullets.
They couldn't find any wallet, ID, so initially they had no idea who this black male in the alley that had been killed was. They did notice some tattoos on his arms, and one of our officers was good enough to run through our database the tattoos that he saw, and that tattoo ultimately identified him as Shavonda Martin.
Shavonda Chavez Martin was born on January 5th, 1996, in Greenwood, Mississippi, to parents Diane Martin and little John Archer Chavez. Shavonda immediately won over his older half-brother, DeAndre.
I remember when he came home in his car seat, he was a smiling baby. He was quiet, like always sitting in his car seat smiling. He was a smiling person. I'm the oldest, and then second, the middle child is Cardarius, and the youngest was Shavonda.
DeAndre, he always been like the smart one, the focused one. Then you got me, I always was the class clown. Then you got Shavonda, he had his own type of personality. Funny, caring, had the biggest heart.
A lot of times, it was just us, kind of us against the world, you know. My mom raised us alone. Dad wasn't there. We lived with family members, been around cousins.
We grew up since we was kids. Like, when we stayed together at my mom's house, it used to be everybody. When we lived in Mississippi, it used to be everybody.
It was fun, rough moments, tough moments, sad moments. But I think that's what made us strong at the end of the day.
In the early 2000s, the extended family decided to move from Mississippi to Waterloo, Iowa.
My parents decided that they wanted something better in Mississippi. There's no money down there. It's like my dad got tired of working for bare minimum and he wanted more, so we moved up here.
The move from a predominantly black city with only 15,000 residents to a predominantly white city of 68,000 came with some culture shock. Waterloo didn't offer everything the family had hoped for.
Waterloo is on the list for the worst cities for Black Americans based on household income, based on home ownership versus renting, based on opportunities, whether it be in jobs or specifically related to pay. And I'm telling you, if you are familiar with this area and you drive through the neighborhoods of Waterloo, you can feel that.
Gunplay was, in our neighborhood, is very normal. Hearing shots all the time, police sirens and things like that.
We wasn't like allowed to like go around the block and stuff because my mom's concerned about safety and stuff, so really tough on us.
Thankfully, the Waterloo community had some strong youth outreach programs.
I had an opportunity to get involved with a soccer program that was beginning in one of the lowest economic schools, elementary schools in Waterloo. And at that, I met Cardarius, and I became his big brother with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Shavondas ended up being on our soccer team the next year.
For the two younger brothers, sports provided an escape and hope for the future.
Shavondas started picking up basketball after I started picking up basketball. He was actually good. Me and Shavondas' conversation was, hey, bro, what you doing? You need to sit there and think about what you're doing. You're really good at basketball, man. Take your talent seriously. Go to school. Like, we need to do something for mom, get her out of here. We need to continue with this sports, play basketball, whatever we can do to get us out of Iowa.
In high school, Cardarius defined himself as an athlete, but Shavondas gravitated toward other interests.
Shavondas, who was very athletic, but also just didn't have that drive. So a lot of times he would be at a game and you just want more from him. He just didn't want to try. And it was kind of that same thing with school. It was really hard to get him motivated. He just didn't have that motivation that the other two boys had. Maybe he saw that Dre was already the man of the house and Cardarius was kind of the athlete, and he said, what is it for me?
As a teenager, Shavondas started making friends on the streets and getting into trouble for the first time.
I think maybe hearing the gunshots in the neighborhood we lived in, sometimes you can just meet a friend or something, and then the adrenaline you're thinking, and it becomes that. So I think he was just struggling with wanting to be cool and be tough.
Shavondas was pretty smart. I mean, he wasn't stupid. He wasn't the person that just did whatever someone told him to. He was his own person.
He was definitely a little, hard-headed and whatever. When he jumped off the porch, he jumped. It wasn't no coming back from it.
In June 2016, Shavondas was arrested for possession of marijuana with intent to deliver.
Shavondas was probably already on the police radar when he got caught with narcotics and a scale and all of that, and then turned back around a month later, and then now is charged with being in the drive-by shooting.
I think it lead from the teenage years, from like fighting and having beef, and then it kind of like level up to go from fighting with hands to with guns.
Shavondas' attempts to fit in on the streets have dire consequences. When someone loses their life, and Shavondas is held responsible.
There were a couple of people shot, one of them being Octavius Brown, who ended up dying.
Shavondas got arrested for murder. I don't know to this day if he was one with a gun that struck the guy.
Shavondas spent 1.5 years in police custody. In early 2018, he went on trial for murder. A jury found him not guilty.
Ultimately, they didn't feel we had enough evidence to put a gun in Shavondas Martin's hands.
I know when he got out, the first thing he did, he actually said he was done with the streets. He just wanted to work and stay out of trouble.
He was back out. He was working at Tyson Chicken, and he was trying to pretty much reboot and change his life to try to get a low profile and just kind of live life on a better way and a straight and narrow path.
Instead of being in the mode he was before he went in, kind of being on guard when he got out, he's walking around like a changed man. And I think it might have just backfired, letting your guard down,
In the early morning hours on May 31st, 2018, 4 months after he was acquitted of murder and had turned his life around, Shavondez Martin has been murdered.
When I heard the name, it kind of hit close because I had arrested Shavondez Martin for murder roughly 2 years before this incident. During that previous investigation, we got to know each other quite well. My first thought when I learned it was Shavondez in the alley was, this isn't going to be easy. Unfortunately, he had made a lot of people angry, and we knew there was a lot of people that were after him. So it kind of created a wide pool of who might have done this. Made it a little more difficult that I learned his pockets had been gone through and possibly a phone taken. So initially we thought, was this possibly a robbery? So that opens up a whole bigger pool of potential people.
Investigators canvassed the neighborhood, searching for anyone who saw or heard the shooting.
A number of the witnesses described what they believed earlier in the morning, around 3:30 in the morning. They believed that there had been a party going on, and they thought they heard fireworks.
Others recognized the sounds as gunshots, but did not call police.
They don't want to call it in and be part of the crime because then their name gets out that they called it in. So we have a lot of people that won't call it in so they don't have to talk to the police.
Moving forward, homicide investigators have one thing to focus on: who killed Shavondez Martin?
Leaving the scene, we didn't have a lot to work with initially. In terms of the actual players, at that moment, we did not know.
In Waterloo, Iowa, police are investigating the shooting of 22-year-old Shavondez Martin. The victim and his family are well known in the community.
It was decided right away, let's go talk to Mom. We went to Diane's house, and I ultimately made the declaration that Shavondez had been murdered. She was obviously distraught and was having a tough time with answering questions, so she wanted her son DeAndre there.
I remember this like it was yesterday. I was in the car. It was me, my fiance, and my daughter. I get a call, and my mom said the police came to our door saying they think Shavondez is dead. I think somebody killed him. And then, honestly, I threw my phone. I hung it up, and I said they killed my brother.
Shavondez's older brother, Cardarius, is away at college when he receives the news via text message from a family friend.
So I called my brother, DeAndre. He answered and told me it was true. And my emotions, felt like I couldn't breathe, felt like my heart just jumped out of my chest. You never think that would happen in your home so soon, so fast, being that your relative, your little brother who you grew up with, knowing that you would never see him again.
I went to pick my mom up, and we went to where he was killed at. We got to see him just laying there lifeless, like an animal that's been ran over by a car. You can imagine how that can make me feel.
While the family and investigators are still at the scene, they receive information from a bystander who says she knew Shavondez.
We did talk to an ex-girlfriend right away, and the reason we did is because she arrived on the crime scene not knowing it was Shavondez, but eventually finding out, and made comments to an officer that she had just been with him that morning. We learned that at approximately 12:30, Shavondez did come by her house, and they talked for about an hour. After that, he called a friend, got picked up, and that was the last time she saw him. She had no real description of what kind of vehicle it was, just that it was a four-door vehicle, and Shavondez had gotten out of the back driver's seat. She didn't know who was driving and who else was in the vehicle. So now we had a timeline of that 1:30 a.m. where he left his ex-girlfriend's house to the 3:30 where the incident happened. So now we've narrowed that time of 2 hours that we need to figure out what happened in that time.
Investigators approach local businesses to see if anyone has surveillance footage of the area where Shavondez was found.
We did find some cameras, but a lot of times what I run across is a lot of people use dummy cameras. It's just a scare tactic. They're not actually hooked up for recording. So we didn't have anything of the immediate area that Shavonda's was located at.
Later, the autopsy shows that more shots were fired than police had previously assumed.
Mr. Martin had 9 entrance wounds to his body. There were 2 to the head and neck area, there were 4 in the midsection, and there were 3 in the lower extremities.
There were 9mm bullets used, as well as .357 or .38 Special. .38 Special and .357 are a common revolver caliber, so we felt we were dealing with a revolver that wouldn't have left shell casings. So we believe there's 2 shooters because of the 2 guns.
The brutality of the murder also prompts investigators to theorize about motive.
This is a very personal incident. When you shoot someone that many times, this isn't a robbery gone bad. We're leaning more towards this is personal, he was targeted.
Police consider the recent acquittal of Shavonda Martin on murder charges as a potential motive for his murder.
Obviously, Octavius Brown's friends and family were not happy that he was acquitted on the shooting. His group had also created a lot of enemies, so there were always groups after, not necessarily him, but the people he hung out with.
And you kind of put 2 and 2 together. Everybody had common sense. That was some type of payback.
Investigating the murder of 22-year-old Shavonda Martin, police in Waterloo, Iowa, examined allegations that Shavonda was involved in another murder on July 17, 2016.
We had a drive-by shooting on Logan Avenue in Waterloo. We had a driver that was in his 30s, and then we had 3 other juveniles in the car doing the shootings. Through our investigation, we learned that multiple people fired shots at the house, eventually striking 2 and killing a 3rd.
A witness identified Shavonda as one of the 3 shooters. The murder victim was 21-year-old Octavius Brown.
Everything we learned, Octavius Brown was kind of just a wrong place, wrong time, innocent victim in this.
Octavius wasn't even part of anything to do with the streets. He was a guy that was just happened to be around. He had nothing to do with it. Nobody ever known him to do anything in the streets, guys. He just was a person that knew street guys.
Friends and family members of Shavonda Martin believe Shavonda was murdered because of his association with the death of Octavius Brown and his loyalty to the friends allegedly involved in that drive-by shooting.
We learned that Shavonda was very loyal to his friends, would do anything for them.
He loved his friend. He would die over them, man. It's nothing to really go. You could say to him about them. If they had beef, it was his beef. He was the one that was gonna step in for them.
And friends staying loyal and not snitching and all of these different codes that we have as young black men is the reason why Shavonda went down the hole that he went down.
Shavonda was acquitted of murder charges on February 9th, 2018. But the streets may not let go so easily.
The sad part is, even though the law acquitted him, in the streets, they don't want to hear any of that. If you're an alleged shooter of someone's family, we all know it's going to be payback. So he tried to lay low, he tried to work, he tried to keep his head down, stay low, don't go to any clubs like that. But in the back of his mind, I'm pretty sure he knew it was always somebody looking for him, always somebody that was still angry that he made it out.
My best hope for him when he got out was him and my mom just moved. I know Cardarius was living in Minnesota at the time, and then a lot of our families in Mississippi. I was praying that they just moved away. You had to, like, God gave you a second chance. Like, a lot of people, especially young black men, don't get acquitted of murder, so I was like, y'all, you two should just move, but neither one of them wanted to move.
When that's all you know and that's all you ever been around, you haven't traveled much, you don't know what else to do, all your family is there, A lot of times people just feel like they'll just stick around and they'll be okay. They just hope for the best, even though they know they have to look over their shoulders. They just feel more comfortable being in a place that they've always known.
After months of trying to walk the straight and narrow, Shavondes seems to lose himself once again to the streets.
Once he got back around or back in his comfortable environment, he went back to his old ways.
He had gotten out of prison and we were hanging out, and I was just asking what he wanted for his life. It was the last time we hung out, actually. And I just remember him looking at me and he didn't know. And it was silence. And I'll never forget that silence. And I just said, "Aren't you scared?" And he just said, "I'm not scared of nothing."
I hate that mentality. I hate I'm not scared of nothing. In all reality, you don't have to be afraid for something bad to happen to you. So you being tough sometimes is just escalating a situation for something bad to happen to you.
One day after Shavondes Martin was murdered, investigators are still trying to identify individuals with the motive and the opportunity to kill him.
June 1st, we really kind of hit a brick wall. We didn't have any leads on suspects, so we were just kind of trying to figure out what to do next. It was suggested maybe go talk to Mom again, see if there had been any information she had gathered from friends or family that could help us. It happened to be probably the biggest break that we got in the case.
On June 1st, 2018, detectives in Waterloo, Iowa, pay another visit to the mother of murder victim Shavondes Martin.
Diane wasn't home, but her son Cardarius was. While we were speaking to him, a car with 4 females pulled up, and the driver, later identified as Shavondes' cousin, Tatanisha Hunt, got out of the seat and claimed that she had just been at the bus station and Denasia Martin was trying to leave town.
Denasia is like a third, second cousin to me. She was not my cup of tea at all. She was more so into the streets a lot.
Waterloo being a very tight-knit town, I'm very aware of who Denasia was. So I knew who they were talking about, but I didn't know where she fit into this case.
According to Tatanisha, friends saw Denasia sitting at the bus stop with a man they believed was Raymond Burden Jr. They know Burden as the stepbrother of Octavius Brown, the man Shavondes was accused of murdering.
There had been a lot of hate between Raymond and Shavondes. Shavondes had gotten off of murdering Raymond's brother, Octavius. There was always that hostility towards them. So when we get that name, the timeline starts to make sense.
Tatanisha is suspicious of Denasia and Raymond being together and at the bus stop so soon after the murder. So she goes to confront them.
I speed down there. Me and all my friends, we all speed down there. We like 2 cars deep. They see me pulled up and they hurry up and drove off. I chased them down. I was like following them. Like they was speeding, I was speeding. I chased them all the way out to like Cedar Falls.
However, at a certain point, she saw a police cruiser and slowed down. After that, she lost sight of the vehicle.
I went back to my auntie house. We was out there, the detective come, and I tell them, you know, I'm angry, like, you know, they was just trying to get to the bus station, get away on the bus.
At that point, we had no idea what part Denasia played in this, or why she was fleeing town, or why Tatanisha was even looking for her.
According to Tatanisha, a family friend named Muff says he saw Denasia and Shavondes together on the day of the murder.
We learned that Denasia had picked up Shavondes that morning of May 31st and was likely the last person now to see him alive.
Muff was in the car with Denasia when she picked up Shavondes, just hours before he was found dead.
Muff, I actually knew who that was just from previous interactions. I knew where he lived. He was willing to let us in and talk. We learned that, in fact, he was in the car with Denasia when they picked Shavonda up that morning. He put it roughly around 2 o'clock. We asked what happened after they picked Shavonda up. So he said that at the time, he asked Denasia to drop him off at a friend's house near a Walgreens just up the road from where they had picked him up. So then Denasia's alone with Shavonda's in her car, being the last person with him. We need to find Denasia.
Detectives go to the Waterloo bus station and request surveillance footage from earlier that day.
Denasia Martin was clearly in a disguise of some sort. Her hair was different. I believe she had sunglasses on. She was attempting to get a bus ticket, I believe to Chicago, but her bag was too big.
Through the investigation, we also learned that Denasia had an apartment in the alley right next to where Shavonda's was found. We started doing backgrounds on her, figuring out who she hung out with.
Police records prove that Denasia has a long history with Raymond Burton Jr., the stepbrother of Octavius Brown, who Shavonda was acquitted of murdering.
Raymond and Denasia had an on-again, off-again relationship. It was kind of well known through the police department. They had been arrested several times together. They had caused quite the havoc at juvenile detention facilities.
Now, investigators have 2 prime suspects. And they're not the only ones looking for Raymond and Denasia.
They never went back to the bus station because I was watching. I figured they probably drove out of town because what somebody had told me, they said she was going to Mississippi.
While trying to track down Denasia and Raymond, detectives receive a surprising call.
It did hit kind of stale for about a day, and then we received a phone call from Denasia. She said she was on a bus in, I think, Michigan at the time, but she was on her way to see her dad in Norfolk. At that time, Denasia denied being involved in Shavonda's death, but admitted that she had picked up Shavonda from the apartment complex and was the last person to see him alive. She said she dropped him off in a neighborhood and then went to her boyfriend's house. At the time, I wasn't going to be able to find her boyfriend because he had multiple warrants and didn't want to be found by us. So it left an open alibi there as far as we couldn't prove that, we couldn't disprove it. But the story just didn't seem right to me.
Investigators urged Denasia to come to the police station and tell them everything she knows. But Denasia says she's afraid.
She knew her cousin had died. She also had been receiving some threats as far as being the last person to see her cousin alive. She knew people were looking for her. She was adamant that there was no way she was coming back to Waterloo.
Just days after the murder of Shavonda Martin, police in Waterloo, Iowa have received a call from the victim's cousin, Denasia Martin, that she is willing to cooperate with the investigation, but only from a safe distance.
She was in fear. Everyone was accusing her of killing her cousin, and she just did not feel safe. So it was decided that me and another detective were going to go to Virginia and talk to her in person. When we met at her aunt's house, she gave a better detailed statement about what had happened.
There wasn't a great deal of consistency initially with Miss Martin, but we were able to piece together that she had been with a group of individuals on the 30th, including Raymond Burton. They had been driving around.
She talked about their timeline, gave us places that they stopped. All these things that she was telling us was just information that we needed to follow up on. It was potential video, it was potential records, purchases at gas stations.
Law enforcement was able to go back, track that story, and confirm much of what she had told law enforcement. We obtained video footage from a number of locations in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Denasia tells police that toward the end of the night, she and her friend Muff went to pick up Chavandez from his girlfriend's house. Later, she says they were attacked.
They pulled up to an intersection. Multiple people got out of a car in front of them and pulled Chavandez out of the car at gunpoint. She was able to identify two of the people that were in that car, Raymond Burton and another male. She stated that they ultimately pulled him into a car, drove off, and that was the last time she ever saw her cousin.
After Denasia finishes telling her side of the story, police notice one contradiction. She said Muff was in the car with her when Chavandez was abducted. But that's not the story Muff told police. Investigators decide to re-interview him.
He stated that he was afraid of the people that did this, and that's why he never wanted to tell us what happened. But he finally broke down and agreed to tell us what happened.
It was just her and him in a car. They went and picked up Chavandez. We learned from him that Denasia starts acting very bizarre at that point. She's driving all over the place, slamming on the brakes, says she has to use the restroom, which was odd to him because there had been a gas station nearby. They then go up to Denasia's residence on the same alley where Mr. Martin was found.
She left the two of them in her car. During the statement, Muff says Chavandez is very paranoid, doesn't like it. Even makes the comment that, I don't like being out here, I don't have a gun, I have no protection.
Eventually, Muff says he saw a gun come through the window next to Chavandez's head.
He stated that a male with a gun told Chavandez, I got you. At that point, when the gunman started talking, Muff said he knew who it was. He knew it was Raymond Burton.
Raymond Burton ordered Chavandez to get out of the car and walk into the alley behind Denasia's apartment building.
Muff stated that as they're walking back to the alley, another person came from behind the apartment building, joined them, and that's the last time he saw Chavandez.
One of the things that sticks out to me, Mr. Martin knew he was going to be murdered. I don't care who you are, and I don't care what you're accused of been doing. Nobody should have to be put in a position where they are walking to their execution.
Muff tells police he fled the scene before the shooting began.
He was afraid, so he pulled away in the vehicle, but as he was pulling away, he did hear the gunshots.
To build a solid murder case against Raymond Burton Jr., authorities know they'll need more than Muff's testimony. They keep searching for evidence that connects the alleged shooter to the victim.
At the time, I knew what Raymond's Facebook profile was. My first thing was see if there was any communication between them. So on Chavandez's Facebook results, we ended up finding a pretty significant conversation.
Chavandez has social media, so people can still contact you. They can still say things that's gonna rile you up and make you feel away. So when he started getting contacted from Raymond, his first instinct was to lash back out, to say whatever he gotta say, because he's not gonna let anybody chump him off or punk him out. And that's where the problem pretty much started to escalate from there.
In that conversation, there is some back and forth between Raymond and Chavandez. At one point, Shavandez insults Otavius Brown, and Raymond takes offense to that and escalates the conversation, threatening Shavandez. Shavandez tells him that if he doesn't be careful, he's gonna end up in a grave next to his brother, to which Raymond responds, "I bet you see him before I do."
Without a doubt, a threat that was made. And this is just in the hours just prior to the shooting death of Shavandez Martin.
At that point, Raymond was actually wanted on a separate crime. We felt confident if we can try to get him in jail, maybe we can build a case and ultimately charge him with murder.
In the fall of 2018, authorities are searching for Raymond Burton Jr., the main suspect in the shooting death of Shavandez Martin.
Our detectives were able to actually locate him in Texas, get him arrested, and brought back to Waterloo.
Raymond Burton was placed under arrest for an unrelated intimidation with a dangerous weapon prior to his arrest for the murder of Shavandez Martin.
Soon after, authorities also arrest his accomplice, Denasia Martin, who authorities believe lured her own cousin to his death.
There was no denying that she knew that this was payback. This was a setup.
We sent the U.S. Marshals after her in Norfolk, Virginia, where she was ultimately arrested. We had her transported back to Black Hawk eventually, where she agreed to cooperate with the case.
Denasia Martin pled to conspiracy to commit a forcible felony and was sentenced to prison for an indeterminate sentence not to exceed 10 years.
In April 2021, Raymond Burton Jr. went on trial for murder.
We were sitting in the same room as his family, so emotions is flaring. Both families in the same room, so a lot of tension.
I was real angry. I kept walking out the room. Like, I couldn't hear it all. It was just making me so mad.
Raymond ultimately didn't take the stand. He refused to talk to us.
Raymond was very cool and calm throughout the trial, up until the time of the verdict.
On May 4th, a jury decides his fate.
Ultimately, they found Raymond Burton guilty of murder in the first degree. And in Iowa, any murder in the first verdict is a mandatory life in prison without the chance of parole.
It was a relief, but after they said guilty, I told my family, we all got up and hurried up and left, because let's not give this chance to boil.
Remind you, this is a small city, small neighborhood where nobody really gets out of it anyway. So after the verdict, after all of this, they're still gonna see each other. And they're gonna see each other every day at grocery stores, picking up their kids from school, just anywhere. And it's something they're gonna have to live with.
The mysterious second shooter has never been identified or brought to justice. And tragically, Shavandez's mother did not live to see Raymond Burton Jr. convicted.
It's months apart, still grieving from our brother. We had to grieve again from our mother.
In September 2018, Diane Martin died in her own home, the apparent victim of a stray bullet in a drive-by shooting.
I seen my mom laying on the floor right there in the kitchen with blood everywhere. So I looked to see if she was okay. I seen her eyes red. And I seen blood like on the stove everywhere from her back of her head. And I seen it and I ran out the house, always to the end of the church by my house. I sat there in front of the door and cried and then go back to the house ever since.
Her murder is still under investigation. We have not made an arrest in it. We don't believe at this time she was the intended target. We believe she was an innocent victim in gunplay.
My auntie was an innocent lady, and she didn't deserve to die. at all with no bullet. But, you know, if justice don't come, God got him at the end. Your karma gonna come around.
In cases like this, even though it's been years and years already passed down, there's also beefs that get passed down as well. So it's probably still gunplay and other beefs that stem from that's still going on to this day. And there's probably some people that's involved in this beef that doesn't even realize where it really stemmed from. My message to all unks, all big homies, all fathers, just try to lead by example.
If you care about yourself enough, you'll know how valuable you is. See, me being spiritual and learning how valuable I am, I knew that with me being gone, that my family, my kids and wife, fiance would fall apart and they wouldn't be safe. So I knew how valuable I was. I knew that I was valuable to my family and my friends and to the world more being alive than in jail. That's what kept me straight-headed.
He's known for being a protector to the people he loves. Among the people who know Chance, he's a gentle giant.
He's tall, muscular, black, big black dude, like a really husky guy. And so he could be intimidating just by his stature, but if you knew him, he's really like a big teddy bear.
A stranger came up, started arguing with Chance back and forth, opened fire, and then ran off.
He was just reaching out for me, like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. He couldn't really get the words out, but I just kept telling him I was there.
The family is just livid that nothing has been done.
A lot of the beef stems from one person having a beef with someone else, and now their whole family and friends are involved.
Sometimes the street has its own investigation and street justice is imposed, and it is almost always deadly.
That whole eye for an eye leaves us all blind.
At 3:30 p.m. on March 23, 2012, multiple 911 calls suddenly pour in from the 100 block of Kenmore Avenue on Syracuse's south side.
Syracuse is a small town. We have a big university. That's pretty much what we're known for, Syracuse University. Right outside, like literally down the street from the university, is the south side. Right below the university is poverty.
The south side of Syracuse is a high poverty area, a lot of violence. It can be scary. It can be scary for someone that does not know the area.
I was just fresh out of the academy as a police officer, and I remember the call, shots fired call came in, shooting, that a male had been shot. We were close by, so we were able to respond pretty quickly. So the scene was still very fresh, very chaotic, where people were outside, so there was people all over. The residents were pointing to where the victim was. I remember running up to the house, it was a white house, green porch, I'll never forget.
The victim, a black male in his 30s, lies just a few feet away.
There was a construction worker in the area that had quickly responded before we got there, and he was helping do some first aid. Then we took over, me and my partner.
He's shot. What appears to be, a single gunshot wound to his lower back.
There was still some level of consciousness, gasping for air. I remember that vividly. He grabbed onto the uniform and, said, "Help me."
Paramedics arrive, followed by several of the victims' family members who have gotten word of the shooting.
One of the first things we learned after talking to bystanders is that the victim is 33-year-old Chance Gathers.
He could see me. He was looking at me, reaching for me. He was just reaching out for me. Like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. He couldn't really get the words out, but I just kept telling him I was there.